Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the last episode of this season of Fire Emblem Unit Feel. I am Mekkah. We're going to rank characters by how fun they are to use or how they feel as units, as my pop filter keeps slipping away from me, but I won't let it. How are you doing today, Bopper?
I'm doing pretty good. I don't know how good, you're doing, considering people asked you to rate all these Fire Emblem Heroes characters, but we'll see what we can do.
Wait, are all these guys in Heroes? No, right. There's no way. Casper, I don't think he's in Heroes.
I don't think Cyril is either.
Yeah, but then again, Cyril's not in anything, so...
He's never been anywhere but the bench.
Mm-hmm.
That made some people mad, I'm sure.
Yeah. Easily. Yeah, we're doing 3 houses, and then Fire Emblem Warriors today, the 2 games with the big submission bases for sure. We talked a lot about 3 houses meta last time because we tiered Leone, and that's about it, so I'm not going to go super deep into 3 houses. I think the general consensus is just like 3 houses has... on the whole, like, okay game feel because A, it's part of unit selection quote meta, but B, it's also 3 houses with 2 easy modes and a lunatic mode basically, where it just either feels really easy or really hard, and that kind of hurts it, and it's also a repetitive game. That's the long and short of it. But that will affect these characters for me a little bit, but individually they have so many different standout traits among them that there's still like plenty to talk about for sure. Beyond that, so you have Casper, Lysithea, Edelgard, Bench Guy, Ferdinand, Mercedes, and Warriors Tiki today. We'll just get started with Caspar, right? So, it's been a while since I've played 3 houses period, and it's been the longest I think since I've played Black Eagles. It is like kind of a fun house to play, especially because it's like either super short. If you play the short version, it's pretty fun. If you play the Silver Snow version, it's less fun. But those are the 2 routes that you probably have Caspar in. I think it's funny how little you get to experience Caspar unless you like really go out of your way to do it in other routes, because his recruitment is like you gotta have a B support or you gotta have like, what was it like? I don't think it's like a really high armor rank, I think, or something. It's very weird. I might be confusing it with Ferdinand, but I know it's like a pain in the ass to recruit out of house. It's probably because his support is on I think you can only get like up to C support before time skip or something. It's been a while, but I know he's a pain to recruit out of house. So generally the only way you'll get a Caspar is if you just pick the Black Eagles, which I haven't done in a long time. I like a couple things about Caspar. I like his personal skill that he's just like whenever he's up and close to someone, he gets like +10 hit, or rather everyone gets -10. The enemy he's next to gets -10 avoid against everyone else. So it's like supportive in that way. And it's like, it's really in character. I remember one of the first things that we saw from 3 houses characters were these personal skills, and I really love Caspar's from a like character perspective, because it's like his whole personality is that he wants to just not be a coward and be up close and personal when he fights people. He doesn't want to be like using a bow, that's why he has a bow and all stuff like that. It works really well. It doesn't impact gameplay as much as I was hoping it would. Most of the personal skills in 3 houses are not that great, but his is kind of nice from a gameplay perspective. It's sometimes relevant, and then it tells a story, which I really like. Then we get to the bad part about Caspar, is that his bases are pretty ass, and then that makes him really annoying to use and maddening. One syndrome that you might recognize is when you have like a lot of inventory slots on a character, that's not very good. So you give him a lot of different weapons, hoping that one of them will be able to kill an enemy. And you come up against an enemy that has like, I don't know, like 15 HP left, and you're like, okay, Caspar has like 5 different types of gauntlets and axes in his inventory, plus he has all these combat arts. I'm probably going to find something that will kill this enemy, right? And you begin checking, it's like Iron Axe doesn't do enough damage. Maybe if I smash, nope, doesn't have enough damage. Okay, Steel Axe, okay, it has like no accuracy and it still doesn't kill somehow. Gauntlets, oh, 0 times 2. Maybe Steel Gauntlets, oh, that's 3 times 2, still not good enough. And you just go through all these different options, and you realize that no matter how hard you try, there is no option that kills the enemy character. That's the experience that I have most often with Caspar, especially on maddening. No matter how hard I try, there is no option for this guy to kill the enemy, and he has like 5,000 different ones between all the weapons and combat arts. That's bad feel for me. The good side that I know exists of Caspar is, of course, that he can become a War Master based on his boons. It's pretty easy to get him into one, and War Master is just, it's a really cheesy food unit class where you just, I think you get, oh right, you can become a, War Master is a good class period because it's like high crit and generally just good stats, and when he gets there, he's fine. Even if he gets to like, I think it's Brawler that gets the Fierce Iron Fist for like a triple punch. That one's pretty good as well. The problem for me is I've never gotten Caspar at that point, so I have no idea what it feels like. I just know it exists. But based on my experiences, I would not have Caspar very high. I would have him like Yeah, I would have him in a red zone probably. Because I don't have much experience with it, and then the experience I do have are bad. So because the game forced deployed him on me, I was forced to go through his bad experiences too. So he's even worse than a bench unit for me. That's my Casper feels. How about you? How about your Casper feels?
Same thing for me. Black Eagles was the first house I played. Silver Snow was the first route I did. It's funnily enough the only route I've ever completed. I've gotten to the final map and just about every other route, or I've watched like the other ones be beaten. But Caspar was like not fun. I don't really like the three houses characters that I feel you have to kind of take kicking and screaming up into like just a class that makes them good, or like a combat art that makes them good. So, you know, in Caspar's case, like Fierce Iron Fist, it makes him good. It makes everyone good, and you have to like just drag him through the mud to even get to that point. And so I don't know. Recruitment on him, I do want to note on the recruitment, I did check it. It's C Brawling, 10 Strength, which isn't that horrible because I think Byleth has a Brawling boon.
Yeah, it might just be the support thing then.
Yeah, because if you want to, you know, so if you want to, because I recruited Caspar in my current like Golden Deer Maddening run just to have a free, like someone who could for free be an Armor Knight Adjutant without having to train like Raphael to level 10 or something. So, you know, I guess that's nice, you know, for what it's worth. So I can give him some brownie points there. But yeah, for the most part, just doesn't feel good to use. Because even on hard mode, it's like where you can beat the enemies in the stat race a lot more. Caspar just doesn't do it. And I don't know. I'm always disappointed by Brawling in Three Houses. It should be more fun than it is. It's like Balthus, I think, is like really fun, but then it's like Caspar, Raphael, everyone else that's like canonically like a punch person. Just, I don't know, they always feel just disappointing.
Yeah. There's only a couple of good punches in Three Houses. It was like one of the most hyped things, I think, when the trailer came out. It's like, oh my god, we get to punch people in the face in this game. And then it turns out that in the end, I think the most fun people to punch with are people that are not canonically punching a whole lot. Byleth has the Brawling boon, I guess, but I usually find that he's like good with Brawling early on. And then at some point, it doesn't really, like the whole lower Might of Gauntlets just kind of ruins it. But I do enjoy punching with him and then getting like a bunch of Crest of Flame blocks. Crest of Flame procs, excuse my language. And then Felix is really funny with Brawling because he gets like the Crest of Eldarius like every attack basically. So that one's fun. And it kind of ends there for me. Like everyone else is just kind of at Brawling until they get to War Master, of course. But dragging them through it is a really big pain in the ass. So I think we'll have Caspar in that feels bad man tier. There was one more thing. Oh yeah, there was one more thing about Caspar. My friend Rengor, he needed more accuracy against like one of the more dodgy bosses. I think like one of the Death Knight fights. And so he reclassed Caspar to Dark Mage to stack his personal of -10 avoid for the enemy with Heartseeker for another -20 avoid. And so he reduced 30 avoid from the enemy just by standing there menacingly. Which I thought was really funny.
Imagine, wow, the Death Knight's a chump if he's that intimidated by Caspar.
I know, right? Like a Dark Bishop, Caspar alone makes him like cower in fear.
Yeah. And I guess thinking of Chump's first Death Knight meta, we get to...
Wow, what a bridge! What a bridge you've made.
Yeah, that's a transition. Yeah,
nice one. Okay, well,
Lysithea. I don't know.
Here you go. Have at it.
Wow, you know, okay, magic feels really bad early on in Three Houses. I'm just gonna say because the charges are so low that you have on it. It feels like if anybody's ever played like Final Fantasy 1, like the original version where you have like just 4 magic spells that you can use and then that's it. That's like what it feels like to me. Like super early on. I think it's worse for healing, but for magic it's always like, oh man, I wish I had more.
Yeah.
You know, and I think on a first playthrough before you know the ranks you want to hit by like chapter 2 and stuff, it just feels bad. Like you feel the need, like you gotta hold back because everyone's got like these 55 use iron swords.
Yeah.
And then Lysithea's got like 5 uses of like miasma or miasma is the first dark magic spell, I think.
Yeah. Do you think this is the same feel as like the Dragonstones? On a different scale?
I think so. I think so. I think it's like map to map instead of whole game. But yeah, I think it's that same problem where until you hit, you know, Bishop or Mage or something that doubles your spells or gives you those extra 5 fires or something, yeah, you always feel the need to, or at least I do, always just conserve. And Lysithea, though, I think is just really fun, though, regardless, once you get past that kind of early game. Because, I mean, yeah, obviously, like, okay, Death Knight, people love one-shotting the Death Knight, and it is a lot of fun. But one-shotting anything, I think, is very satisfying. And so just obliterating all the Cavaliers and Paladins in the game, with Death Spikes, or all the cheesy strats you can do with, like, I think it's, you put, like, speed -5 on people, or move -4, all these crazy debuffs. I think Fire Emblem would benefit sometimes from having more, like, debuff bots, like, because I really like the butlers and maids and daggers and ninjas and fates, and I think like Scythia kind of feeds that into Three Houses a lot. And I think if you're conscious of it, it can be a lot of fun to play around with. And if you're not, she just kind of feels like, okay, magic that hits hard.
That's true. I think that debuffing thing is more Hubert's thing, and I think it works really well for him. In particular, he's not on this list right now. But when I think of debuffing, I think of Hubert's, like, I think he has like a Swarm and Banshee, I think, which are the two fun debuffs for him. Lysithea is really, like you said, a lot more about the one-shot power. I did Golden Deer my first playthrough, and I did I one-shot the Death Knight in Chapter 6, the second time you encounter him. Almost organically, like people did sort of suggest it in the comments, I think. But I don't want to say this in a super hipster way, but I did it before it was cool, I guess. And it's really funny. That was very satisfying. A couple of other things about Lysithea that are fun. I do agree that one-shotting really adds to a lot. The Thyrsus is something that you usually end up giving to her. Like, I know I always say that you have to pass the Thyrsus around between your magic users, and I always try to do so. But it's gotta start in someone's inventory, right? You're doing battle preps, and you want to put it on someone's inventory that's actually gonna use it. So I usually just start out on Lysithea with it until I have a different plan for it. Like, if I have to reset, then might put it somewhere else because of, like, a specific plan I have. But usually it starts on Lysithea, and that generally in practice that means she keeps it for a while until I feel like trading it around. And extra range, in a way, feels similarly disrespectful to the game for, like, when it comes to cheesing it, like just like one-shotting does, or just stacking like vengeance strats does, because you shouldn't have this much range in a Fire Emblem game. Like, generally you were limited to one range, and then maybe you can have two range, but there'll be some kind of drawback, like either you're an archer, you can't shoot at one range, or you're a mage and you're fragile, or you're using a javelin or a hand axe, or a little weaker or less accurate. Lysithea has basically unrestricted 4 range. You kind of wish for 5 range, but you can't really get that on her very well. But 4 range is really good. I really like the personal skill that she has, where she learns more. I wish it was tutoring related, because Lysithea is, like, she's just a studious personality, but instead she gets more XP whenever she's doing something in battle, which doesn't entirely add up, but I get why they did that, because it'd be really overpowered if she gained more XP from tutoring than other characters. That would go really fast. So I like what they've done, I can see. I just wish it was related to studying somehow, because it would be even more in character. And it also lets her hit, like, higher thresholds. There's another bad part of Lysithea I want to highlight, though, and that's her low movements, which it's a problem for a lot of characters, but at least someone like Leone, or someone like Edelgard or Ferdinand eventually grows out of, where, okay, you struggle with 4 or 5 move for every level until, like, level 20 or so, but then at least you get to go to Wyvern Rider or something, or if you're someone like Dimitri or Ferdinand or Sylvain, you can get to call a Cavalier maybe once in a while. But if you're Lysithea, then until the DLC came out, you're stuck with 4 move for basically the entire game until you get to, like, Gremory for 5 move, which is not much of an improvement. And then for Lysithea to make it even worse, she doesn't even have physic like a lot of other magic users do. So you're stuck with no freaking movement for almost the entire game, unless you buy the DLC and go Darkflyer with her, which is like, damn, that's a long while to go without move, potentially the entire game. Especially because Three Houses maps are kind of big, and you kind of want to move out there. So let's say it's like, okay, you get Return 1 Stride to go somewhere, and you're probably not going to move all the way forward anyway, because you don't want to be in range of enemies, because that turns her into a dead Lysithea. And then you have to hold back a little bit on that, and then next turn it's like, okay, I have 4 move. I'm probably going to be stuck in this area for a while now because I can't move anywhere. And, just like how flyers have good feel, because they can get almost anywhere, and you do what everybody wants, restriction in this way does not feel good. So that's a bit of a bad part. And I also agree with what you said about the magic charges. I also tend to hoard them a little bit. Usually works out just fine the way I pace them, but you do feel like you have to hold back a little bit. I read it on a lot about the things I don't like about her, but I do agree overall that she's a really fun unit to use, though. just different aspects, but they don't all weigh equally, right? So let's move her to good and ruin my entire overlay again.
Damn, that overlay. And I guess last thing I want to mention just on the mastermind thing real quick is that New Game Plus has not come up yet for Three Houses discussion. But if you're doing New Game Plus, which was my most recent hard mode where I did Fortress Knight Lysithea, it makes doing really ridiculous, stupid builds a lot more fun because it's very easy to like just keep slotting her into these classes, quickly get these class masteries. You know, your weight -5s when you're just sitting around an Armor Knight, or your Death Blow, or your Darting Blows, or your whatever, your whatnots, Armored Blows. So I think that's a lot of fun. It makes her feel less grindy than a lot of other characters if you're doing like silly builds.
Yeah, I think that goes for Three Houses in general, but definitely someone like Lysithea who's not really meant to be in physical classes, it's a good opportunity to stick her in those. I did mention last time, I think, that New Game Plus is definitely something I recommend trying for people who haven't tried it in a while, because I think it was, for most people who played Three Houses for the first time, I think their first playthrough is always New Game, of course, and then the second one is always New Game Plus, because got to try out this feature that I've never seen before in Fire Emblem, basically. And it later turned out to be a bit of like, oh, if you play a New Game Plus, that like doesn't mean anything, you know? It's not the game as intended to be played, because you learn things so fast. You're never meant to have mastered all these things in this time frame. It's like you really got to hold yourself back a New Game Plus to not turn into a complete joke, even on maddening. But at this point, I think most people are experienced enough to know what they should and shouldn't get on New Game Plus if they don't want to like completely trivialize the game. And in that aspect, I would actually recommend people try out New Game Plus, give it another go, try it on maddening, because it actually has made it a bit more fun for me to play, and it's a lot more lenient with what you can skip with regards to like tutoring, optimization, etc. It's a lot more forgiving in missteps in those aspects. And like you said, you can get a bunch of dumb classes without having to put in all the grinding work. Like, don't feel like you have to put in the new game grinding work. Once you get your golden shower, do whatever you want. Or if you don't want the golden shower, do whatever you want anyway. It's like, it's your game. Nobody's going to stop you.
Yeah. The intended way of playing Three Houses is basically just standing in line waiting for the roller coaster.
Yes.
And New Game Plus bypasses that.
Yeah, but I mean, you're going to be waiting plenty in Three Houses with the loading screen anyway, so you might as well skip some of it.
Oh, God. Okay, bad field. Put the rest of them in bad just because the loading screen.
But I have to add another line. I don't want to. I might end up doing that anyway, though. Okay, I talked about Lysithea, so I might as well talk about Edelgard as well. Another Black Eagles unit feel. I've always said I liked Edelgard a lot. I made at least one video about her and about how she's representing the fan base. I think for a lot of people, even if they don't hate Edelgard herself from through their own experiences, internet debates have largely made Edelgard like really hateable, even if you haven't really done anything with her, just because you're done with the toxicity of Edelgard versus Dimitri. I've never really been impacted by that personally. I never really cared for those as a, like, I guess I'm a typical Golden Deer player or whatever. I just never really cared. Maybe if I played one of the other 2 rounds on my first playthrough, it would have been different, but as is, I'm just like, okay, whatever, let's just end racism, buddy. And then whenever I got to use Edelgard myself, I just can't help but have fun. She's really solid even before time skip. A couple of the things that I've been told by Rangor have really made me appreciate her more, particularly the part where she can like use her armor boon to gain more speed through like the aforementioned weight -3, maybe even weight -5 later. She's really bulky. I find that this type of unit is just really fun to use on maddening because the bulk really stands out. You really need people to bait enemies without rolling over and dying. Edelgard does that like super good. I like her quotes. I like her voice actress. And then of course, I think Amir, Raging Storm is super stupidly stupid. Like, I don't know why anyone could put that in a game and think, yeah, this we can probably balance this out somehow, but they just didn't. And then the game is just saying, all right, if you want to do this, go ahead. And then they made all the post-time skip maps like kill boss or kill bosses. So if you want to, you can just not play the game. And if you use Edelgard in the way that, like, if you use Edelgard optimally, there's going to be a larger portion of the game that's going to be loading screens and monastery things and counter screens. Then there's going to be gameplay. It's going to go by so fast. But I find that satisfying to play sometimes. Not always, but like speedruns and LTCs do that all the time. And it's really fun to like figure out how to bounce Edelgard between enemies. It's like Guild Force, but more interesting because you can do it as many times as you want, but not. How do I put this? You have a limited number of Aimer uses in like a single map. You have like 20 uses total. Every Raging Storm costs 4, so you have 5 total. And then even if you repair it afterwards, if you have the materials for that, you still only restrict it to like 5 free guild forces within the map, and I can still create interesting puzzle scenarios that I find satisfying to solve. So even though the game itself becomes very easy to beat, challenging yourself, having like self-imposed challenges, still makes it interesting and hard in its own way. And I think that's kind of fascinating. But even in casual play, it involves some like hilariously stupid things. Like just whenever you're in a bad spot, you can just have Edelgard take care of the problem, and then basically have like a 15 tile canto if you wanted to. Also, shoutouts to a dumb trick you can do with Edelgard if she's an enemy. If she has the Raging Storm thing as an enemy in like the ground or field battle, you could put an impregnable wall on one of your units, and then she will attack them, and then constantly try to Raging Storm them for 1 damage until her aimer runs out, and then she has a broken weapon. And I think that's fun. Go ahead, talk about Edelgard. I need to like open the door for a package real quick, and I'll be back.
Okay. Well, my first playthrough of Three Houses was Silver Snow, as I mentioned. So Edelgard, for me, just dips out of the story. Her and Hubert just yoink, gone. So I didn't have a whole lot of opinion on like the whole Edelgard versus Dimitri thing, and I still don't. I only have one opinion on it, which is that Atrocity is like the best combat art name in the game. But, you know, so that counts for something. But so my experience with Edelgard, using her myself, is just she leaves, and I think that's really, really fun. I think Three Houses would have benefited from more of a Radiant Dawn type structure, where you're kind of moving around
Yo, that's
the
smart.
different armies, and
like in part 1.
Yeah, like part 1 of and then like you could kind of do part 4 style Radiant Dawn, where like you end up choosing who you go with. I think it would make the decisions of the students make more sense, rather than like, yeah, man, I'm in your class, so I'm betraying my homeland, man. That's how it's gonna go. I think that would have made it better, and I think but Edelgard, I think the fact that she can just leave makes her really interesting to me. It's like, I don't know, I think it's a lot of fun that a character can just like dip and be gone. You spend all this time training, and I get where some people would probably be upset with that, because I know that a lot of people were, you know, I want to recruit everybody, I don't want to lose anybody, and I think that I like that uniqueness of that. I've never used Edelgard long term because I've never done Crimson Flower, although I did watch a friend of mine play what he referred to as a true Iron Man of Three Houses, where everyone was Armor Knight. They had to be in an armor-based class.
Oh, God.
And all of part 2 was Great Knight Edelgard raging, storming through the entire maps with Shoes of the Wind and all kinds of stuff. So that was a ton of fun,
man,
to watch.
That's one way to make
Edelgard experience.
That's one way to make Great Knight look good.
Yeah.
Finally, Great Knight superiority in Three Houses. I just realized that, yeah, you have a way different perspective of Edelgard than I do because of Silver Snow. That's funny. I want to like add to that real quick. Like, it's really difficult for devs, I think, nowadays to make characters leave, because character attachment has become such a big part of Fire Emblem, and especially in Three Houses, investment in characters is enormous. You like tutor characters for like 5 months or so, so it's really hard to justify people leaving. They did it anyway though, so props for that. And then like the last time they did the leaving thing is like, I guess some Fates leaving things, and before that it's like Orson from FE8, where Orson has literally zero investment probably. Like, the game literally tells you, hey, don't invest in Orson, because you know, something is up with this guy. Like, you know, you're kind of wounded from last battle, right? Just sit on the bench, please. Don't do too much, Orson. Just, you know, hint hint. And Edelgard is like, your protagonist, and then she just leaves. I think that's a ballsy move that otherwise there's not much of that in Three Houses or in Modern Fire Emblem in general. I like that a lot. So yeah, a lot of good, not entirely good feels, but it stands out, and a lot of it is in a good way. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
I agree, because like the only other character I can think of that just disappears is like Kaze in Birthright. But if you're like me on your first Birthright playthrough and he just dies, and you're like, what? Is that just a story thing? And it's like completely arbitrary the way that you make that not happen. But with Three Houses, you either actively make the decision to not, or the story just moves in that direction, and you're like, okay, this makes sense. Yeah.
And then like, there's some other characters that like, sort of leave, I guess. Like Flame leaves you if you go with Edelgard's route. But that's like obvious that when it happens, it's like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's like a secret route kind of anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Shouts to people who turn Flame into their dancer and then go Crimson Flower and have no dancer left.
Rip me. That's why I didn't go.
Oh,
Crimson Flower one time.
Ripperino. Speaking of people you won't have in Crimson Flower, how about that Cyril? The bench guy?
It's okay. I know people. Okay, so Cyril's like this new. Fire Emblem now likes to really mark their ests. Be like, okay, this is the est. We're gonna take Donald. We're gonna have Mozu. We're gonna stick, like Blossom or some kind of like skill on them that's like, yo, growth's plus 10%, and so you're like, oh man, I gotta jam out on this character, see how crazy they can get. But Cyril has this sort of weird problem where Three Houses may be the worst game in the franchise to be an est, in that everyone is a growth unit that you start with, so you're already super invested. It's very hard to find like the spots in your army for someone like Cyril. And then the more you know about the game and you realize, oh wait, Cyril's not an est actually, he's just straight up good at base and like super easily goes into like these ridiculously nice classes and has point blank volley, and they're like, okay, well now he's the exact same as every other character in the game except with a shitty personal, because stats don't matter in Three Houses because of class bases. So don't like him, and I hate all of his dialogue in the monastery, so bad.
That's fair. I don't have as much experience with Cyril as I like to. He's a unit that, like, if I'm playing Three Houses again, I'm definitely trying out again, because the only time I used him was my Blue Lions hard mode New Game Plus playthrough, which is like not a very good way to tell just what a character can really do for you. But I do have plenty to say about Cyril. A lot of time people bring up that his personal just doesn't matter for him, and he's the worst personal in the game, because I think what they did is like they looked at what would be good growth for Cyril, then they added his aptitude skill, but then they removed what aptitude does for him from his normal growth, so he just looks like everyone else growth wise, which is, it's a fair way to look at it. But the way I see it, that just means he has no personal skill, but that doesn't make him worse than other people at combat. Like, there's still, you gotta look at the end result of everything, because, you know, someone like Raphael, he still has a personal skill, but what does it really do for him, right? It doesn't really do anything, but it doesn't make Raphael one of the worst units in the game. And then, like you said, Cyril has paths to some of the best skills and classes in the game, regardless of his stats anyway, and they're not even that relevant. And even if they are relevant, his are not bad enough to be that bad. I think if you make him join in chapter 6 or so, or like chapter 5, and then you like tutor him, you can hit like point blank volley and maddening and still just one round stuff, which is pretty impressive for what's supposed to be an S character. In fact, that'd be impressive for like any character. But I haven't done this yet myself. I also know that even Silver Snow, where he's often considered to be the worst, he can still reclass the Wyvern quickly and be pretty viable at base, regardless of like how late you get him. He's really underrated in that route, I think, as far as I know. But again, this is all from theory and hearsay. I don't really know any of this stuff from my own experiences. But like I said, my only time I used Cyril was like that Blue Lions New Game Plus hard mode thing. The last bullet point I have for Cyril was that I like his voice acting a lot, actually. I get that the repeated like Rhea simping or whatever is annoying to people, but it makes sense for him, so I don't even hate that much. Like, he's a 14-year-old that was basically rescued by Rhea, and then his supports, from what I can tell, were pretty real. He basically just tells Hilda, stop being so racist, you dumbass. And then his selection quote, I think especially in part 2, I think is really good. He's like, I mean, all he says is let's go, but he says it in a really way that really vibes with me. I don't know why. I don't know why this particular one just really stands out to me. It's just like with Leone, the line that I talked about last time, about when Gerald dies. There's some like nice emotion in there that I really can't put my finger on that I like. So there are some parts of Cyril that I want to try out. So like, I'm interested in Cyril, but I haven't used him enough, or it's gonna sound really gross when I say it like this, but I haven't really felt him enough to know if he feels good or not. So I'm gonna put him in medium. But next time I'm playing Three Houses, I'm definitely using Cyril, because he's really interesting to me.
Yeah, I can see that. I think for me, he just always falls into this unfortunate group that some characters in Fire Emblem just fall into, where it's, I always tell myself I'm gonna try out Cyril. I'm gonna try out Cyril this time, and then by the time I get to the point, whether it's like chapter 6 or 7, when I'd want to recruit him, I'm like, well, I'm using all these other characters that I really like, so I'll delay his recruitment until as late as possible, so he gets as many auto levels, and then I just never end up using him. Just sort of, I don't know. he falls into that weird, unfortunate category of characters that are always, I'll use them next time.
Yeah. I've had that problem a lot of the time. I think we briefly discussed it for Radiant Dawn for some characters, like, oh, I'm gonna use them, I'm gonna use them, I'm gonna use them. Or we even discussed it with like Zeke, I think, for example, where it was like, yeah, he joins too late, and like by the time you get to him, you already have so many other units that you just kind of grow attached to. So you really have to like dedicate yourself to using him from the start, like kind of leave a spot open in your mind for him. It's like, okay, I can't let myself use too many units because I still gotta leave some spots for Cyril. And I do remember my first playthrough of Three Houses, actually, the unit slots in this game are sometimes really restrictive, where it's like, okay, I can bring like 10 units maybe, and then if you're playing like a paralog, it like reduces it by 2, and then you gotta bring like, I don't know, Hanama Manuela
Lorenz.
or Ignaz Raphael or something, where it's like, okay, shit, I can't bring my normal units. I have to bring them as like adjutants, which is like, I have deployment slots at home. Adjutants. It's like, it doesn't really feel like you're using those units. They're just backpacks. They get a bit of XP, but it's just not nearly as fun as having them on the field. Like, just to put this in perspective, when they're adjutants, you don't get to hear the selection quotes. That's a really important part of unit feel, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and they don't even get like a, there's no like thanks sidekick moments involved. There's like, they don't say anything.
That too. Do they have crit quotes when they crit? I don't think I've ever seen like the thing is, I never used like attack adjutants. I've never seen them crit, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like Selena's personal from Fates. It's like, what even happens if that were to happen? Like, I don't know.
Just like her sidekick always crits or something when she crits. I think that's the idea.
If she's in the if she's the pair up for attack stance and the lead attacker crits, she crits but has her normal chance to miss.
Oh jeez, what the fuck, dude? What's that? I think the only time when like attack stance or adjutants feel good is either they block like some kind of crucial attack like a guard adjutant, or what I've seen once, I think it was like Dimitri with attack adjutant to do somehow, and Dimitri hit someone that was like really far away. I don't remember exactly what happened. Maybe like a retribution thing. And then the dude went in for a dual strike from like 15,000 miles away. So he just ran across like the entire map just to deliver like one punch to the face. I don't remember exactly what the clip was, but it was really funny to me. And that's the exception. That's the exception that proves the rule, in my opinion.
I'll have to go check the dude's like guard adjutant selection quotes, because I love his quotes for when he takes low damage. Weak,
yeah. The dude really just rubs it into your faces. Yeah. Did you see Awaken My to Do?
Yes, I did. The one I always just remember him going toe to toe with the Death Knight in there.
Yeah, that's a good vid. Played by Jug. Okay. Let's get back on topic. I'm stretching a bit because we know this video is not going to last forever, but
yeah, and selection quote meta is going to be big on this next one.
Oh yeah, definitely. Ferdinand von Eyre is, I think, a really interesting unit when it comes to like tiering and discussing like character stat comparisons. I am planning to do a video, not on him specifically soon, but on a video where I talk about that a bit. So I'm going to try to hold back a little bit here. But I find that Ferdinand somehow he always comes up in discussions between like experienced players and casual players. There's always some kind of disagreement about that. I think that's really funny. I love Ferdinand von Eyre memes. I know Kirby Master is a very big fan of him. But that's like, yeah, that's a big part of him, obviously. And then I find him a little bit generic sometimes in like the way his class work. I find that he's like a bit of a copy paste of Sylvain in a lot of ways. There are a lot of differences between them, but I don't like how their portraits are the same, almost the same, and then they have like the same class lines basically lined up for them. Like they're basically like lance, axe, horse based guys, and then they're just in different houses. They feel like copy paste to me, and it kind of takes away from it. I love what they did with the personal skill Confidence, where he's at full HP, he gets plus 15 hit and avoid. It's first of all, it's just a really good skill to have for like just hit rates in general and just gambits, and then it also just fits with his character so well. So I enjoyed that. I wish he was more special, but for me, it's usually just those ship strike spots, and I find it really hard to steer him away from Wyvern Paladin because those classes use Swift Strike so well, and everything else feels like everyone else. If I do that, it's like, okay, I'm using, I don't know, what if I made him a War Master? Yeah, it's great, now I have a War Master Ferdinand, but it doesn't really feel that different from a War Master Raphael, except worse. So that's the problem that a lot of Three Houses units have, where making units go different classes doesn't really feel that special because everyone can become those classes. So it's like sticking a portrait onto a class. I think I used that analogy before for Echoes. It's like, okay, I put a different portrait on the same class, but it still feels like I'm using the same unit, so it doesn't feel that great. Swift Strikes, though, those kind of power spikes you get when you learn the combat art that's that good, does feel really great. I love it when you, like, I think around level 20 or so, you get access to Wyvern Rider and Swift Strikes at almost the same time, usually for me. And that's when you like just go nuts. It's like, okay, finally all my hard work paid off. I get to death blow Swift Strikes people to death with just one big Wyvern. And like the chapter before this guy was just like a 5-move brigand. That feels really good to me. That's about the extent of it. It's still overall a fairly medium experience. It's really salvaged by I Am Ferdinand von Eyre for me. Everything else about it is kind of eh.
Yeah, I Am Ferdinand von Eyre. Like, it's so. I don't.
Why does it work so well? I still can't put my finger on it.
Is it? It's like it's cringe, but not. It's I don't know. I have no idea what to make of that. But yeah, him and Sylvain are kind of like the Senten Kane of this game. Now that I think about it, because you got like the I am like serious knightly, I am noble, I am Ferdinand von Eyre, and then you have Sylvain who's schmoozing on everyone. So, and then of course they fall into like the classic good utility, but I wish this were more unique class lines of Fire Emblem, because I remember when I did my Blue Lions Iron Man, everyone got like meme classes that were suggested, like people wanted like Brawler Linhardt and War Cleric Annette and Bishop Felix, but then the person who submitted Ferdinand was just like Wyvern Lord. It's like
thanks, friend.
So he does feel like one of those characters that I've never really like played around with a whole lot, and I find that I do like his personal, and I think if you really dedicate to going full on dodge tank Ferdinand would be fun to me, but like the amount of investment you have to put into dodge tanks in Three Houses just always feels like this is a lot of work for the most dangerous type of tank there is.
Yeah. The thing
where they just have to sit there and take it.
Yeah. The thing with dodging von Eyre, I think there's just two things that are fundamentally wrong with it from a optimizing perspective. One of them is like if he gains HP from leveling up, he's no longer at full HP, and so his personal stops working, which is minus 15. That can make a big difference, and it would be very in character for Ferdinand to overextend and then gain HP, and he's like, oh shit, I no longer feel so good, and he just vanishes off the map from a rogue Pegasus Knight. The other part that doesn't really work that well is like you can dodge things, but if you're just baiting enemies without doing anything, that's a problem. And because Ferdinand has no way to really maximize his enemy phase offense besides like mastering Wrath, like mastering the warrior class for Wrath, the payoff is not that good. Like if you have the best example of this is like Dimitri, right? He has Battalion Wrath and Battalion Vantage, so not only does he not get hit, he also kills the enemy that he fights. But Ferdinand, he just baits people and then does like maybe a third of their HP in damage in return on Manning, which is not as good. If you're on hard mode, then it's different because then he can one-round stuff probably on enemy phase, but that's like a different kind of story. On Manning, it doesn't really work, and on hard, I think it's just overkill defensively, and then offensively, it's just the same as ever. So that's why it doesn't feel that good to me. It's also why it's not optimal, but that's not what this is about, obviously.
Yeah. So what you're suggesting is Alert Stamp plus Dancer Sword of Void 20 Killing Edge plus Wrath Ferdinand.
Yeah,
is what you're suggesting.
Definitely.
With Retaliation casted on him.
Yeah, Retribution. Yeah, that will work. That will work. That'll do it. That'll probably help. I mean, that's half of that is generally what people would suggest for dodging von Eyre. Like it's fun, but I wouldn't recommend it as something like this is a good build. You should try this. It's more like this can be fun for dodge tank von Eyre, but be careful. It has its problems.
But this is also why I like New Game Plus, though. Is like just have fun with some of those weirder things, especially on hard mode where you don't feel the pressure to play as optimally. So yeah, I don't know. I'm so close to liking Ferdinand, but I feel like he is just so far away. See, I never thought about the HP thing on the level up, though. I guess the real big brain strat is level up HP on Balthus to activate King of Grappling. That would be the real strats.
I guess the other strat could be cap his HP, and then you can't grow HP.
Rip
or play on 0% growth. Modifier switch to play on 0% growth, so you can't grow HP.
That's one way to do it. Or rip Balthus fans who got Wrath strats get ruined by Goodie Basket.
Okay, I'll put it in medium because Ferdinand von Eyre, I'm Ferdinand von Eyre, is like, it works, but then everything else kind of drags it down, I think. I think you went last on Ferdinand, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Mercedes. Physic is pretty fun because it makes everything not suck with 4 move. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's about it. All I have to
about
say
it.
for Mercedes.
I thought that might be about it. If you brought it up first like that, yeah, that's gonna be about it.
Yeah, for her basic like builds that are like super obvious. That's about it. Now, the last time I used Mercedes full time, I had more fun with her than I maybe have had with anyone else in the game, other than Battalion Wrath, Battalion Vantage,
can I
Dimitri
guess?
just cheating on.
Can I guess?
What?
War Master? No, wait, she can't do that. She can't do that.
Warmaster.
Hold up. No. I'm Armor Knight?
No, that was Lysithia in that run.
Okay, I tried. All right, I give up.
Wyvern Lord.
Oh, now that's a daring today, are we? Wyvern Lord in 3 houses.
Yeah. Now, okay, so Wyvern Lord, yeah, it's like not crazy because obviously, Wyvern Lord is like good for any physical class. The reason I had a lot of fun with that though was like not necessarily because of the Wyvern Lord at the end, but because the entire game was just Axe Mercedes running around and like, okay, all right, warrior, that sounds like fun. Let's go with that. Like, and with New Game Plus, like being able to just do all that weird stuff. So like having like, because I know people love Bow Mercedes because it's super obvious. I love like just fighting against this. She has like an Axe Bane, and it's so bad and it's so awful. But on New Game Plus, you don't care, so you just kind of roll her out there and turning her into like, everyone's gonna have that Wyvern Lord that kills everything, and having her be that instead of Ferdinand von Benched was just incredible.
Works for me. I don't think I've ever messed around with Mercedes in that way. I have used her as like a regular unit, of course. I do agree Physic is nice. I don't get why she has a lower faith rank than Linhardt and Marianne, and as a result, she doesn't get Physic as soon as they do. That you run into that problem early on where you run out of heals and you don't have Physic to like back it up. At least with Linhardt and Marianne, you get to have the fun of like running out of heals and then having to decide, is this worth a Physic or not if someone is like right next to me. That's very special. I talked about personal skills a lot in this video, and I think for Mercedes, I think they could have done better because she just has Live to Serve, which is the most boring healer skill you could ever have. It doesn't feel very personal. Because in like Fates, I think that's a skill that every single bishop, priest, whatever gets at some point. Whereas for Mercedes, I mean, I get it. She's like a helpful kind of like non-mom type character that kind of helps others, but I don't know, it feels kind of lame. Plus, it's not even really serving others if you're healing yourself as well as you're healing others. Like, it's like the opposite. It's like, okay, I'm only healing you because I get HP back that way. It's more like egoistical, like basically using us for our allies.
Yeah. That'd be funny if Live to Serve was just like Nosferatu, like in Smash Bros. So you just have to like hurt the other person. Like, that is my HP now, please.
Yeah, Live to Serve should be, you use a vulner, you share it with someone else. Like, you have the option to like have someone else gain it 5 HP as well or something. Like, that should be Live to Serve in my opinion. That's game design stuff. That's not my department here, but that's what I came up with. And then on that, yeah, she heals people. I do love reading arguments between people arguing that Fortify is good and people that think Fortify is not good. I think Fortify is not that good. I can see why it's good on some playstyles or why it's helpful on some playstyles. I just think if you have 3 houses down, then Fortify becomes really bad because it has worse range than Physic, and I don't always want to heal all my units. It's like a minor thing, but I don't think Fortify is that good. And she's like one of the 2 people in the game that have it, so it always comes up at some point. But I think Mercedes is the worst early healer in the game. And for unit feel, it's weird because when I first got 3 houses, when I first looked at 3 houses, I wanted to go Blue Lions, partially because I liked Mercedes' portrait and I thought she was interesting. And it turns out she's kind of generic as all hell. I don't really care for her anymore. So that kind of turned her out a lot. So that's. I'm trying to decide where she goes on medium and feels bad. I think you were about to say something.
I was still thinking about. I just wanted to say something on like the Live to Serve thing actually, because in Fates, when like your butlers do it, like when Jacob does it, it feels like this is really useful because I want Jacob seeing combat anyway. So he's throwing daggers around and stuff. But with Mercedes, Well, is she just going to be healing up the HP that she got from leveling up?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
if she gets in combat, she's just going to die. Like, you don't want her out there anyway, because NOS tanking isn't... Like, if NOS tanking was, like, big in 3 houses, then yeah, you know what, it would be cool, but so it just sort of feels like, it's not bad, but at least be either useful or funny, I guess would be my thoughts on it.
Yeah. I think when you're playing on lower difficulties, you can sometimes get in a spot where you have to accidentally expose Mercedes a little bit, and then it becomes sort of viable to like have her heal. Because if she didn't have heal to serve, they would both have to drain vulneraries for it to work out. Because if Mercedes heals someone else, then no one else is going to heal her unless you have a second healer on hand. So it can be useful there, but only in like a bit of a fancy play way. It's never the only solution to anything, but it can be like sort of funny, useful. I'm gonna put her in bad. I don't think she's that.
Yeah,
she's all that. Plus, I get to feel the road this way. The importance of aesthetics coming back to me.
Feels so good.
All right, and that's 3 houses. Are you ready for some Fire Emblem Warriors? I still can't believe this unit made it on here.
I think it's hilarious. I do want to also shout out Fire Emblem Warriors for having the worst menu feel in human history, because you have like the big Fire Emblem theme going on when it says press start, and then when you press start, the music just stops. It just cuts just straight out, and then there's nothing on the menu.
Oh, really? I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's very awkward and sad sounding.
I just remember that when you said menu feel, that like the button presses for menus in Warriors are not always intuitive. It's really hard to explain, but like trying to do battle preps in Warriors is one of the worst experiences ever.
Oh yeah, it's like, so awful.
Moving shit around and making shit. I can't explain this for shit, but like, it's just try it out. By the way, this is not a great first impression for Fire Emblem Warriors for this video, because that game is awesome and hilarious and stupid. I never thought I'd like this as much as I would. And Tiki is also like the most interesting character in Warriors by far, because she's the only character that can like transform into something different. So for those of you who don't know, Fire Emblem Warriors is what I think it's called like a Mosu game. It's basically just beat people up and fulfill objectives and win, and just mash A to win, or do like big warrior specials where you're just blowing up the whole place, or get a gigantic number of kills. It's so hard to explain this in a video about strategy, but you know, here we go. Fire Emblem Warriors is fun, and I streamed it like once or twice, so maybe you can find some gameplay footage there. What am I talking about? You can find gameplay footage of Warriors everywhere if you want to. The point is, the game is fun. You should try it. Tiki is so weird in that game, because until she has filled her awakening gauge, which is, I guess you can think of it as like a goose gauge, she basically just might as well not be able to attack. She's like little dinky attacks that don't really do any damage. You don't want to do that. You want to be in her dragon form, and then when she's in her dragon form, her awakening meter slowly starts depleting, kind of like the Lagoose, and until it's like back to 0. But you can like get gauge back, I think, by killing enemies in awakening mode. So what you end up doing, it's kind of like the opposite of a normal Lagoose. Normally in the Lagoose and like the Telius games, when you're transformed, every time you fight, you reduce your meter. So you want to space out your fighting so you don't untransform and use grass to keep your gauge up. In Warriors, you're constantly looking for enemies to fight because they fill your gauge. So if you don't have any enemies around, that's when a unit feel hits real bad, because you're losing gauge and you're not getting anything out of it. It's a lose-lose situation. You're useless now because you're not fighting anything, and you're also going to be super useless soon because you're going to untransform. And that is horrible. And Warriors has a weird couple of bugs that I've noticed, especially when playing on split screen with a friend, where if you're playing with 2 players, there's less enemies spawning, so using Tiki in split screen is especially bad. And then even if you're playing on solo, you get in these dry spells sometimes where there's no enemies around, and you want to feel that gauge, but you slowly see it like fade away before your eyes, and like, ah, shit, I'm gonna be like a useless ass little girl soon. And then but when you're a dragon though, Tiki is like super strong. Like, she just wrecks everything. It's so fucking funny to just, you can mash whatever button you want. It's gonna kill enemies. It doesn't matter what you do. You just use whatever combo you feel like doing, and it's just the greatest feeling ever. But it's held back a little bit by that feeling, that incoming sense of dread, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna not be able to do this sometime soon, because I'm gonna hit a dry spell somewhere. I'm gonna run out of enemies. I'm not gonna have any gauge left, and it's like, it's a little daunting. But when it works, it's very satisfying. And then also, final thing on Tiki, when a battle is over, she's like starts out as dragon form, and she has like a scene going on, but she like untransforms, and then she's still going like rawr, but she's still a little girl, and that's cute. I like that too. Yeah, that's my final spiel on Tiki. I have more, but I don't want to be talking for like 10 hours just about Tiki. Okay, that's my feel for Tiki. It's like, it's like, I think I'm ending up on around medium for me for Tiki. What about you?
Yeah, Tiki's MVP screen at the end is really adorable, but Tiki's like is super unique in Warriors in that you have to really build her a specific way, which feels weird in Warriors because Warriors is very brain dead in almost every way because it is a button masher, and every character, like whether it's main story characters or unlockable or DLC, they're all button mashers, except Tiki that requires an extra step to become a button masher, or you have to like really like level up that gauge power-ups when you're, feeding resources into her, which makes her unique. I think that for a lot of players that can make her feel really good to use because there is like this uniqueness and you have to approach using Tiki a different way. But, for me, like when I played Warriors, I played through the story mode, and then I did enough of like the battle history mode to get Lyn and Celica. So I played maybe like 25, 30 hours of Warriors in total, which was a lot, but there's also so many characters that I tried to use Tiki a lot. Got her fairly high level, but because I didn't really know how to approach making her good, it just always felt bad the whole way through.
I had the same experience. It's like, damn.
Yeah, so it's like now that I know how to make her work, it would probably be a lot more fun to go back. And I recently did revisit Warriors, but like not for that long, so I didn't get much of a chance to use Tiki to make her a lot of fun. But
yeah,
so it's all about your knowledge, I think, on Tiki. So I can see why some people would put her in good, and I can see why a lot of people would put her in bad. I would personally probably put her in bad just because that's been my actual playing experience.
Yeah, I'm gonna add real quick to your thing that really resonated with me about building her. Building characters in Warriors is not fun. Building characters in Warriors is so bad because it usually involves getting skills, which involves getting certain items, which are usually droppables from enemies, which means you have to grind through maps just to get those items, and then you have to go into like some dumb screen to unlock the skills as well, and then you also have to get like materials to get certain skills up. Grinding materials is not fun in Warriors. Sure, you playing the game should be fun, but when you're playing the maps to build a character, it somehow sucks all the fun out of it. It's like grinding in a normal Fire Emblem game. You don't go into an Ox battle for fun in 3 houses. You do it because you want Death Blow and you want Darting Blow in your characters. That's why you play them. That's what you want, hit plus 20. You don't play it because you like going to Ox battles. Those are not. It's not fun. It's somehow, even though it's still Fire Emblem gameplay, it's so tedious and so boring. But when the payoff is there, though, that's what you do it for. That's why you put up with the grind to begin with. But that building part drags anyone from good to medium, in my opinion, including Tiki. So I'm gonna put her in medium as well. Dude, fuck grinding.
And Last Warrior's thought is that building might be bad and grinding might be bad, but nothing will ever feel worse than item management in Warriors. Sifting through weapons is the worst thing. In that game.
That's
it's so bad.
My favorite feeling is, I have over 100 Dragon Stones. Time to figure out which ones I want to sell. Because there's one character in the whole game that uses Dragon Stones. Why do we get random Dragon Stone droppables for so many times?
I just sell everything because it's like, okay, I have 200 steel swords, and some of these have more skill slots that will make no difference. Because did anybody ever pay attention to Strong 4? No. Who cares? Sell them. More money to buy level ups for Tiki.
See, that feels bad for you, but for me it feels even worse because I do pay attention to which skills I have, and I'm like, okay, I only have one sword that has Lance Reaver on it. I better not sell it, because what if I want to forge something that has Lance Reaver on it? And I just kind of repeat that for every single skill ever.
Yeah.
And it's a horrible menu. Don't ever... Also, you said 200, but the limit of items you have of one type is exactly 100. And every time you go over it, the game will not let you progress until you've sold off the access once. So, I miss Myrnus and I miss my 200 combo.
There's Cavaliers on this map. I might need to break out the Zanbato.
Yeah, basically that. It's more that, it's not that I want to bring the Zanbato, but I want to forge the Zanbato. But when I forge the Zanbato on something, I can never put it on anything else. I can't get that skill back ever. So that's also a decision I put off. So item management in Warriors, like you said, is the absolute, it's below feels bad, man. It's absolutely horrendous. It is. Yeah, make sure you play this game as much as possible. Make sure you spend as little time as possible in the menus itself.
Yeah. You will never notice that you haven't optimized your weapons, and
It's
Warriors.
true. Because in the end, it's like, when you're playing a normal Fire Emblem game, it's like, oh, I have a horse player out. Look at me doing big damage to horses. In Fire Emblem Wars, it's like, okay, their HP bar goes down a little bit faster when I'm mashing the A button. Big deal, dude. Especially when you're like fighting over-leveled enemies and the difference is like nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, like the only thing that matters in Warriors is weapon triangle, really, for damage.
Yeah.
Being at weapon triangle disadvantage feels so bad in Warriors.
Oh god, that's...
Which is, not a problem, because that's like the mechanic, but,
Yeah, isn't that Tiki's thing that she's like, because she's always in awakening mode when she's fighting as a dragon, she's always at weapon triangle advantage?
So maybe, I don't know, she does big damage,
Yeah,
so I
that's
see
true.
big numbers and I clap.
Yeah. I saw big numbers and I clapped. Me when I play Fire Emblem, doesn't matter which game.
Yeah.
That's a good way to sell up unit field, probably. I see
Yeah.
big numbers or funny quotes and I clap.
Yeah.
Whew. Well, I had a good time with this. Thanks for joining me for this season, Bopper.
It was fun.
I'm not sure when, if I'm doing one again. I'm definitely doing it again sometime. I don't want to do it too often because then it will get old a little bit. And I'm not sure what I'm doing for the next bit for my big tier list benefits. I'm probably gonna make a poll or some sorts on my Patreon and figure out exactly what people want me to do, and I'll probably comply at least a little bit. But this will definitely return at some point. I'll keep an archive of this tier list and the last one we made, and you might see it return in like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. We'll see. But I hope you'll be there for it.
Yeah. And I would love for you to have me back, because this was a lot of fun. Season 2, I think, was even more fun than Season 1.
All right. You don't hear that often when you're doing repeating shows.
No, you don't. But
All right. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
All right,
Goodbye.
see ya.